Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome everyone to the group chat brought to you by Overmark. I'm Darrell, your host, and with me as usual is Emmanuel. What's up, Emmanuel?
What's up? Very happy to be here again to share our perspectives. This time around, we're going through a little bit more of a touchy subject. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. It's a bit juicy, but we're more than happy to share lah. So Darrell, let's dive right in.
Yep, so the topic for
So,
this podcast is managing your parents' expectations. So with Chinese New Year coming, for some of us, they are going visiting, even though you're limited to eight packs. So, inevitably, the topic will come up, right? Like, how's your kid doing in school? And then your parents will try to start flaunting whether you did well or you didn't do well. And then comes out the whole idea of like, wow, parents' expectations, almost impossible to meet. So today we really want to dissect and to really share more about how do we manage our parents' expectations, why is it important to do so? And in the end, what is it that you should take away? Should you listen to your parents or do they really know what is best for you? So maybe I start with you, Emmanuel. Before I share my own personal story, can you share what was your relationship with your parents, particularly on the topic on academic excellence?
okay, so I think my family is quite chill. My mom and dad didn't really enforce too much studying lah for myself. But my dad he used to question like why I didn't do so well, like whenever I screwed up, like not getting A's, that kind of thing. Then I thought that I was very sad and disappointed back then lah, because they could see me working really hard. So my mom would just be like, you shouldn't stress yourself out too much. Just let it be, just just do your best and we'll be proud of you. And then my dad would be a bit different. So even when I would get like somewhat solid grades, he'll always ask me like, why didn't you get a better mark? Why didn't you do any better? So it really frustrated me until I realized that he's coming from a place of love also. So when he asked me questions like that, I think that he was trying to give me the tough love approach lah. And I can promise you this, like the earlier you find that out, the much better your life will be. Your parents really only want the best for you. So it really doesn't come across nice. I know you guys get so annoyed when your parents say stuff like that. Makes me even feel, it makes your blood boil lah, especially if you put in your effort. And then you're already like upset about the test or how you did well, how you did badly for it. Then your parents might just rub salt in. But that being said, right, you must always remember they really only do it for you. Like I haven't met a parent who doesn't love their child lah. And for most of you guys, I'm very sure the same is for you. And your parents really just want to help you out and want to be there for you. And you must remember, we're all human. So even your parents can make mistakes. That being like so for example, they don't know, they're not trained to know how to help you cope better with your academics. So sometimes you cannot hold it against them. You just have to remember that your parents really love you. Okay, and if you think about it, right, you will eventually be in their shoes one day, and you will eventually have to face your own, like your basically parenting lah, and the difficulty that come along with that. So sometimes try to be a bit more mature. I know it's ironic because you're the kid here, but try to be a bit more mature and see how they are thinking as well, how they feel. There's a lot of anxiety in being a parent. I know it because my sister just gave birth, so I can really feel the stress lah. So I know for a fact that most of your parents, if they are saying stuff like that, and sometimes they take you off, then try your best, like run, like just endure it, okay, because they really love you. And just try to keep your emotions settled also lah. It's always important for you to keep like a cool level head, especially when you're doing with loved ones. Then always assure them that you're putting in effort. So if let's say you screwed up for a particular test and then they try to grill you on that, then you just tell them, don't worry, the next time I'll make sure I'll do well. And just try to hold your front lah. Okay, that's the only advice I can give with regards to this. Apart from that, always just make sure that you are also doing your best lah. Because I think that a lot of us in Singapore are very privileged to have very good parents and very good support systems. So not many people have the same access to it. So I think a lot of us, including me, sometimes we forget how privileged we are, and how lucky we are to have certain parents and certain just support systems around us that a lot of other countries do not. So take your time, really appreciate the good things in life. And family is always tricky, but love is always there. That's what I feel. yeah, I hope the same. I hope the same applies to you, lah. Darrell. I think our perspective should be similar on this. I'm not too sure.
Okay, drawing back to, because I think Iman, your family was a bit more supportive. I think your dad was playing the bad cop and your mom was playing the good cop, but overall it was a more positive environment. For mine, the context of my own personal story was that both my dad and mom did not go to university. So when both me and my sister came into this world, they really pinned their hopes and expectations on us making it to university. So sort of they see our achievement for their kids as their own. So there was that burden and there was sort of the expectation of us having to fulfill that. For myself, I did really well at PSLE. So I think I set a very high bar for myself. So subsequently, based on my performance in secondary school and in JC, they were clearly not satisfied because they know I could do a lot more. But from my own perspective, I was pursuing other things that I felt was more important for my own growth. So academics was a focus, but was never really my full focus. So I think that was where my parents had a bit of unsatisfaction in terms of how I was doing in school. So I felt like that created a lot of friction and it wasn't really very healthy for our relationship. So it got to a point whereby I really tried to disengage on all issues. Like during my teenage years, I was like, I know what I'm doing. I know what's best for myself. But the truth is, right, at that age, honestly, at your age right now, as much as you feel like you understand the world, there are still a lot of things out there that you might not be aware of, that something that only being a true adult will be able to inform you. So I'll put it in this way. I think, like Iman said, all humans are flawed. So that includes your parents. You need to realize that you go through so many years of school just to prepare you to enter society. But there isn't a school for parenting. There is no crash course out there. There is no lesson. There's no tuition on how to be a good parent. So whatever your parents are doing, it will be out of good intention, but it might not necessarily come out the correct way. Which brings me to the next point on what are some ways that you can actively try to manage your parents' expectations? What are some methods that you can try to work on that will make it a lot better for both for both you and your parents, and making sure that the relationship is not strained? So Emmanuel, I just wanted you to maybe share a pointer or two on what do you think works in terms of managing parents' expectations.
I think that the most important thing is to be upfront with them and to also show them that you're putting effort. So if you really think about it, right, your parents shouldn't be unnecessarily abrasive if you're already putting in a lot of effort. And I think most parents, okay, I know some people some people have different experiences, but for the most part, if you're showing your parents that you're really trying hard and you're genuine about it and you're upfront about it, right, then usually they won't come and question you lah. That's my own experience. And in fact, some of them will probably be more open to helping you, emotional support, whatever other support you might need. They will usually be there lah. So okay, I know that it's a bit of an awkward age lah. So most of y'all might already have started having a certain rift between your parents where you don't feel that comfortable sharing all the information with them again. But I urge you to like try to maintain a strong relationship lah. Communication is very, very important, not just in relationships with your parents, but in every relationship. So I feel that this one is the same. But it's kind of rigged for you because your parents really love you. So when you share more with them, it also improves your relationship with them lah. Of course, be selective in what you share. But when you're trying to manage the expectations, like if you share that you're struggling with a particular topic, or you've really put in a lot of effort but you're not seeing results, or you are not you're not seeing the results that you think you should be getting proportionately, I think they will also temper their expectations in the right way. And if you show that you're putting the effort, should be fine lah. Personally, that's my own experience, and that's the best tip that I think I could give to you with regards to managing your parents.
I think for me, it falls to two main points. Number one is, as Iman mentioned, communication. And second is really managing expectations and being realistic about it. Let me touch on communication first. So, I mean, I've been through that phase as well, whereby I really cut off communication with my parents. And there was really this rift that makes me feel like I can't communicate with them. They don't understand what I'm going through. Because at this point, you might feel like studies is so difficult. It's different from back then when our parents were studying, because the education system has gotten so competitive and it's so much more difficult that maybe sometimes the parents just don't understand how difficult it can get. And I do understand that point because we've been through it ourselves. We know that it's not just about putting in effort. Sometimes it's just like if you're not good in a certain subject, you really can't do well in it, So it's not something that is within your control. And I think there's a lot of frustrations that boils out of that. So that's when I think communication becomes super important. You have to tell your parents that, hey, the reason why I'm not doing well for Chinese is not because I'm not putting in effort, but it's really because it is a language that I don't get, or there are like certain other contributing factors. What I'm talking about are reasons, not excuses, because your parents can suss out your excuse in a moment. If you're just giving bullshit excuse, they're gonna give you bullshit treatment. So what you want to do is be genuine, be very candid and upfront about your struggles. If your main reason is because you're not putting enough effort, tell them why you're not putting enough effort. Maybe because now is the busy period for your CCA, or you're focusing on other subjects, or you're just feeling stressed and you need sort of like a breathing space. I think if you manage to communicate that to your parents, it helps them understand you a bit better. And when they do have that perspective of what you're going through, it makes it a lot easier for them to empathize with what you're going through. And in that sense, they will be able to better manage their expectations as well. The truth is, your parents will want you to do well regardless of whatever reason, because they know that it will open you up to more opportunities in the future. But you kind of need to manage their expectations in terms of where your abilities are at as well. They can't expect you to be scoring A1s when you are still failing the subject. So I think that's something you need to communicate, that, hey, if I'm at F9 now, right, my next target should be like a C5. I want to hit that C or that B4 first. So you let them know that, hey, I'm working towards that now. So don't expect me to get an A1, but give me time. Give them a time frame to work with. Tell them I need 6 months. Give me 6 months to prove myself. So I think that makes it a lot more palatable for the parents to digest your version of your reality, for them to be able to empathize with you. So that sort of communication is all the more important if you find yourself stuck in a very toxic environment where your parents' expectations are completely different from what you are going through. So that starts with communication, and it starts with you. You have to speak up because they won't understand what you're going through in school or what you're going through in life. Okay, the second point other than communication is about realistic expectations. So I touched on it briefly, but you kind of need to set your parents up in a way where you under promise and you over deliver. That is the best spot you can get, which is like, wow, I don't think I can do well for my exams. Jalat, jalat. I think I'm gonna fail everything. Then when you come back with a straight B's, right, they're gonna be like, wow, not bad, ah. So that's what I mean by managing expectations. Is like, don't give yourself that stress by saying that, yeah, I will be able to score A1s. If I don't do that, right, you can confiscate my phone. I mean, that is like just killing yourself. So know where you can aim towards, but promise a bit lesser. So when you do so, you over deliver, and that's when you realize that, hey, maybe things aren't that bad. So you kind of need to be smart about the way you temper with expectations, and I think that can help a bit in terms of managing expectations. And if your parents have the tendency to compare you with your cousin or your sibling, right, let them know that it's a different case by case basis. You can't compare like person for person. I think that's one of the most stressful factors, where you have an older sibling that's doing better, and then your parents keep comparing you with your older sibling, and it creates a very big drift in the sort of expectations that your parents have. So for that, you really need to communicate that your circumstances, your abilities, your interests is different. So you need to manage the expectations in that way. But it all boils down to, firstly, building that two-way communication. And touching on that point, right, other than now that we shared on methods to manage your parents' expectations, let us touch on why it's important to manage your parents' expectations. So I'll start off by saying this. All parents, I'm saying all, 100% of them, want the best for you. But sometimes they don't know what is best for you. So the only way you can make this whole thing work is by getting them on the same team as you. Don't think of it as like, they are the one that is trying to stop you from achieving what you're trying to achieve. If your goal in life is not directed towards academics, you need to communicate that to them. You need to let them know, hey, I'm thinking of, like, I find myself leaning more towards this direction. Then try to get them on the same side and bring them along for the same ride. So what I mean is this. So at a point when I was in secondary 2, I was like really into Dota. So I was like, I want to be a professional gamer. Then I was like, okay, I mean, at that point in time and compared to now, how unrealistic was that? Let's put that aside. But at least I told my parents that. So when they heard that, they were like, oh shit. Okay, they knew that was not what was going to be best for me. But at least they understood why I wanted to play games so much or my interest in it. So they were able to manage the expectations more. But at the same time, we were able to strike a pact that, okay, I'm only going to play this amount of games every weekend. The rest of the time, I'll work on studying. So I think that was a very effective way on and a very important thing to do with your parents, which is to communicate the expectations and making them be on your team instead of trying to stop you from doing what you want to do. So with that being said, you really need to know that your parents are out there to do what's best for you. Another form of communication that I think is super important for myself, before I took my A levels, I was still failing my H2 chemistry months before my A levels. So I knew I was in trouble. So what I did was that I told my parents, and immediately they really went out there to get me a really good tutor. And within that few months, I was able to push my chemistry from a fail all the way to a B at A levels. So I thought that was a pretty drastic jump for me, but I wouldn't have been able to achieve that without my parents' support. So those are all little things that would help. I just want to add in one more point because I'm really rambling so much. But like, because I was in a sports CCA, I was constantly very tired and my school was very far away. So what my father did was that every morning, when he see that I was like really shagged out, I was like a zombie, right? He'll offer to fetch me for a 40-minute ride all the way from Yishun to Bedok just to send me to school so that I can sleep on the car for the extra half an hour. So those are little things that I really did not appreciate until I grew older and I look back on it. Then I reflected on, hey, actually, my parents were always there for me, regardless of how I felt at that moment. They were always there. They had my back. They were ready to help me. It's just that sometimes I didn't communicate to them that I needed that help. So Emmanuel, for you, what do you have to say to that? Why is it important to manage your parents' expectations?
Well, before we go through that, I think, yeah, my parents also did the same thing. So, well, that really strikes a chord with me. Like, I still remember early in the morning, like, they sent me to school at like 6:30. And it was quite a long ride, so like half an hour. It it seems like a very small, very normal thing for parents to do, but I think when you realize the amount of things that they'll go through for you, then I think you'll start to feel very bad, right? So I think here's a point of self-reflection also lah. If you think that your parents you're not happy with how they are, sometimes maybe it helps to look at the good side. So like try to identify the things that they do for you also. And then you start to realize that your parents really do care for you. But yeah, with regards to managing expectations, the approach that Darrell mentions is very accurate, not just for academics, but for everything in life. So you always want to be a under promise over deliver guy. But that being said, also set goals for yourself lah. Be consistent with yourself. I also think it's important. So for example, um, for don't actually set low goals for yourself. So you can tell other people that, oh, you're not aiming for a crazy grade, but you should never tell yourself that though, because I feel that it's more important to be driven, to be motivated, than it is to please other people. Because if you have that drive within you, you will find a way to make it happen. Okay lah, at least that's what I feel lah. Don't ever resign to settling, I feel. And if you are stressed about your parents and stuff, and you end up like promising, under promising also, it might not be a good thing in the long run lah. Because it could really eventually shape you into trying to just aim for less, to aim for something more conservative, to avoid disappointment and avoid failure. But I really think that failure is just part and parcel of success, and so you shouldn't be afraid to fail. You shouldn't be afraid to disappoint in that sense. Um, you should really just give yourself like the full brunt of effort. And when you do that, right, even if you fail, even if you miss a target, you will still be fulfilled. And I can guarantee you that lah. So the idea is really fail fast, but at the same time, like move on, right? So don't be scared of failure. You have to fail your way to success most of the time. So that being said, right, it's smart also to keep expectations within range. Don't promise something you cannot deliver lah, but also don't settle for anything less than your best. Because I feel that's my mantra lah, at least. So different perspective here once again. Very very wise of Darrell, and I think that at your age managing this kind of expectations, is a very, very important skill also, because as you go over to the workplace, or you go over to uni or JC, or JC, which is the next phase of life, you start to have to take on and shoulder a bit more responsibility really. And so all of these skills very, very important. So do your best with it lah. In the like right now it might be pleasing your parents, but in the future it's probably pleasing your employers, right? So even then, also same thing. Try to under promise over deliver, but make sure you're still aiming for something that is pushing you to your boundaries lah. That's I think that's the best advice I can give to you. Yeah.
I think something that most parents will want for their kids. I don't think this is just pertaining to academic excellence, but is this idea of being the best version of yourself. So I think all parents want the kids to really turn into the best version of themselves in whatever way. It's just that in the structure of Singapore's academic education system, is structured in a way where academic excellence is heavily rewarded in your subsequent phases in life. And if your parents they gone through a similar process whereby they understood how that works, and in their workplace it reflects that, by having a better education they get more opportunities and things like that, it is a reflection of reality. And as much as I personally disagree with that notion, there's nothing that we can do to change the system. So all you can do is you can play the best within the system and understand why your parents are acting in a certain way. So when we're talking about communication, it has to be two ways. It's not just about saying what you want to say, but you need to listen. In fact, listening is such an underrated skill because you want to understand your parents' perspective. The moment you're able to do that and you're able to internalize that, that's when the communication starts to flow. It's a two-way communication. So it's that really encapsulates the whole idea on how to manage expectations, which is the basis of communication. Okay. I mean, rounding up to the most important part of the podcast, which is my favorite, which is the dilemma of the week. Okay, Emmanuel, how much should you listen to your parent, and do they really know what is best for you? What do you have to say to that?
I think that my parents wouldn't know what's best for me, but I owe it to them to at least be respectful. So that's my take on it lah. Okay, here's the important thing that a lot of people don't consider, and that is a qualified opinion. So if you are pursuing something that you is very niche and your parents have no experience in, then you shouldn't listen to that. So that's the harsh truth lah. This applies to almost all aspects in your life. So for example, right, if you're going to a very prestigious JC and then you're struggling to cope, but you know that you're on the right track. So say imagine you shoot for the stars, you made it to like RJ or something, and you're dying, but you know that you will eventually pull through for A levels, and your parents are getting very worried, they're getting very anxious. You have to recall and remember that they have never been in the same position as you, and they're not subject matter experts. Okay, so don't not saying don't trust your parents, but take whatever they say with a pinch of salt. And at the same time, right, still be respectful to them. So this applies later on in life also when you all start to really pursue careers that your parents might not know about, or different kind of hobbies lah that they have no experience in. Then your parents really don't know what's best for you. Your friends also don't know what's best for you. You will only find industry experts and people who are basically in that niche, right? Just take their opinions. Take it as a qualified opinion. So it's very important to learn the difference between a qualified versus an unqualified opinion. So as much as you love your family and your friends, don't be too swayed by them if you already know what you're pursuing in life. For me, it happened when I wanted to take a gap year to go and start teaching tuition and basically start a business. So for me, it's very, very different. My parents had no experience in this segment and they were quite hesitant also, but thankfully, like they allowed me to lah. So I knew that I didn't want to follow their advice when it came to certain things like just study, do a degree first, and then decide what you want to do from then on. Because I always had the impression it's a waste. It's an epic waste. I don't know how so many Singaporeans do it. Like they go straight into a degree that they do not like, and then they end up coming out with like $40,000 in debt from your school degree, right? Not knowing what you want. I'm not hating on the degree. I'm pursuing one right now, but at least I had the experience to see what I really wanted and to pursue it. And I know I made the right choice. And so it was very, very difficult. No? Can you imagine when I was like after army, 20, 20? Yeah, 20. And then I took the leap of faith to just take 1 year off from school to go and find out what I wanted to do. I went to go for internships. I went to go to pursue like different kinds of career paths. And I eventually realized, oh, okay, tutoring is what I like. Tutoring is my purpose, my passion. Education is my passion. So then I pursue it with full force lah. And so I think that this is another thing you have to start to develop, which is the skill to trust yourself and your intuition. And then from there, only decide what considers, or rather only consider what are qualified opinions. Don't be swayed by things that your family or your friends say, especially if they're not qualified in that subject matter lah. So bringing back to the question, should you always listen to your parents? No, but you must always be respectful to them. So always consider what they have to say. You have to remember that they're coming from a place of love, and then try to meet a compromise. So for me, my compromise is I told my parents, you don't have to worry. I promise I confirm going to get a degree, but you let me decide which degree I want. So that's a compromise that we reach on lah. And I think that it's very important for you to do the same. Yeah, that's my own take on it. How about you, Daryl? Got ever encounter something like that or not?
Well, I feel like what you just shared was such a golden advice. I can't phrase it any better. It's like you don't have to listen to them. They might not know what's best for you, but you have to be respectful because they're always coming from a place of good intention. So I would say that my experience was not as drastic as taking a gap year, but it was more of coming from the point of view where my parents never really understood why I spent so much time and energy in my CCA. But I'll argue that my CCA and playing floorball itself, developing that as a hobby and eventually pursuing it a lot further was integral in my personal growth. So I knew from the start that doing the sport itself doesn't really net me much benefit, but the amount of opportunities for growth for me to even like eventually represent the country, to go overseas, that moment where you actually have like the national flag on your chest and you're singing the national anthem before the game, that is not a moment that you can justify in terms of value. And having that accomplished and being an athlete taught me a lot more to life than just studying, because I learned the value of self-discipline, perseverance, having the grit. It really ingrained a lot into me that built me to who I am today. And my parents never understood that. They were like, just do well in school, because doing well in school gets you to uni. Getting a good uni grade gets you a good job. So they were all just thinking on more on the practical side of things. But I don't fault them for it, because that was the way they were brought up. When they were growing up, they faced a lot of like maybe financial difficulties. So all the more they valued that financial security as compared to where I'm coming from, because they provided a stable family for me, which I'm very thankful and respectful for. But in terms of my own personal goals for my life, what I wanted was not exactly what they were preaching to me. So I felt that having my own views on things really helped. And I was thankful that I developed that at a very young age, that I knew what was it that I want in my life. So while I do advise you to listen to your parents, but only listen to them and take it with a pinch of salt. So it's good to listen. Whatever they say will have some truth and some element of like reality into it, but listen and digest it and decide for yourself what you want for your life. But that being said, on certain topics, I'll feel that it might be smarter to defer to your parents, just from the basis of the fact that they as adults, they might really know what is better for you, especially if you're at a younger age. Let's say if you're at Sec 1 and Sec 2, I still feel you're at the age of figuring out what you want in life, that you might still want to cater to what your parents are telling you. But if you really know at 15, 16 or 17 and 18, you clearly know what is it that you want in life already, you can say for certainty, this is my purpose in life, then go for it. I'll say there shouldn't be anybody or anyone in the world that's stopping you from doing it, because that is your spark in life, that's what you're trying to pursue. So go for it. But if you're uncertain, it would be good to take more advice in. So I think overall, the relationship with your parents is one that's super tricky. There isn't really a perfect method, art to it, but it's more of like just figuring out what's the best way that works for you and for your parents. I think sharing on this whole idea of managing your parents' expectations is super important, because if you're able to do it, it really greatly reduces the stress on your end to allow you to perform and grow into the person you want to be. So before I end this podcast, maybe I'll just throw it back to Emmanuel for last golden advice that you want to shout out to everyone before we end this podcast.
Last piece of advice would be just appreciate your parents. Find the time to, I don't know, spend important times with your family and friends lah. Because as you grow older, you realize that that's really the most important aspect of life that a lot of people miss out on. And they don't really know those are the precious moments of life. So that's my best advice to you.
Man, and my advice to all of you out there is to really try not to stray away from your parents. If you feel like there is really a gap, you feel there's a gulf between you and your parents right now, I think take the proactive step to try to communicate with them in terms of what you're going through. And trust me, they always have the best intentions for you. So don't feel like they're your enemy. Don't feel like, what they're trying to do is to stop you. They're just trying to help you. But make sure you get them on the same page so that they're able to help you to go to where you want to go to. So it all boils down to communication. And that is so important. And we really want to share that because it can really help to transform the next few years ahead and also to build that relationship with your parents, which is so precious. There's nothing in this world that can replace that relationship. You only have one set of parents. You have one dad, one mom.
100% agree.
Yes.
Really, Darrell has really nailed it on this topic.
Yeah.
Serious. You only have one set of them, and they've already done so much for you. By the time you reach this age, 16 years of taking care of someone is very, very, very tiring. Okay, the fact that they can do it and still keep up with you is the beauty of life also lah. So do your best, really appreciate the people around you. Yeah.
So
okay, great. That's basically one of the best podcasts that we've ever had. I think it really hit home for both of us lah. And so we hope that we've given you very, very good insight on how you should be managing your parents, how you should be managing your friends and family also, and what qualifies opinions, and basically what you should consider in making certain decisions. We hope we've been a very good resource for life advice. So not just academics, but life advice also. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy tuning into the group chat. We are more than happy to have more episodes like that coming up.
Yep, and with that, we come to the end of the podcast. Remember to follow us and subscribe or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, we will be looking to bring you more interesting content in the future. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
It sound right, boy.